If you ever get confused or frustrated because you're trying to do something and it's not clear how it's supposed to be done, you are not alone. I know business is business, but common sense finds its way into every part of life, business, personal, social, etc. So if you're a person that gets stuck, gets frustrated, and it prevents you from moving forward, this video should share some tips with you that make a big difference. Hey folks, I just want to take a minute to talk to you about something that, in all essence, it probably should not be a topic. It should not be a point of contention, but it's real, and that's common sense. When you think about common sense, for some people, they don't give it a second thought. But the truth of the matter is, common sense should be normal thinking, normal deduction, thinking of things that don't require any extreme approach in understanding something. It should be average for most people. Now, I know when people have mental challenges or mental health issues, possibly substance abuse issues, common sense might not be so common. And I have been on that side of the track, to be quite frank with you, and I made decisions that were not common. But in our everyday life, when you set aside the mental health, common sense should be not something that you have to struggle or fight to develop, to understand, or to have created. I would like to say that if it's extreme, to understand what common sense is because of a particular issue, whatever the issue may be, that might be a problem. Because if it's extreme, then that means you're really working harder than you should have to work to get to the bottom of whatever the issue may be. And again, that should not be something that has to happen. So when you think about the impact, if you don't have common sense, if you're having issues, the impact of not really relying on or drawing from a common sense approach, an easy solution to a problem, it can impact your personal life, your social life, and definitely your business life. And it's not always about being an entrepreneur, but even in your job, even your spiritual walk, to be completely honest with you, your spiritual walk can vastly be impacted by not having common sense. We have to be able to make decisions based on what's normal, how we interact with one another, what's healthy for ourselves, what's healthy for our day-to-day decision making, our day-to-day coming and going. Those are quote unquote common sense approaches or common sense understandings. It's sort of natural to go from thing to thing or day to day, and you're choosing your options without a lot of effort. Now, here's where and why sometimes common sense may not seem to come into play. When we have the world in upheaval, or your house in upheaval, so that's two extremes, right? We got worldly issues, which are way beyond our reach. We can't do very much about it. And then we have the within reach, the household issue or your personal life issue. When those things are out of order or off kilter, right? If they're not aligned properly, right? If things are twisted, they're not really where they should be or the way they should be. Sometimes, because of how we are impacted as human beings, we don't make the best decisions. Bad enough, as human beings, we will make bad decisions from time to time because sometimes we don't think about a thing clearly enough. We don't expect something to happen. Things happen in a way that affects us or impacts us personally, and we're thrown off. So outside of those things, which can happen to anybody, when you have additional stress, can I feed my family? Am I going to lose my job? When can I get back to work? My spouse left me. I can't pay a bill, whatever it may be. We sometimes make bad decisions, which are not common sense decisions. Hey folks, Sir Charles Carey here. Most people that are watching this content may not even be subscribers. Do me a huge favor and subscribe to our channel, share it and like it. All the things that most people are asking you to do. Now, if you really like what you're getting here, please go to our website. The link will be in the description so that we can give you something free. No obligation. It'll either be the 3 peak tips or a structured breakdown so that you can take advantage of it. And again, there's no obligation. As we continue to build the channel, look for new subscribers and look for the opportunity to pour into other people. We know there is massive value. I've been doing this for quite some time, and all I really want to do with my life is more of the same. Pour into others the way others have poured into me. I work with many people. I've studied from many of the greats, and now it's your turn to get the same opportunity. Thanks a lot. See you. Back to the conversation. And for some people, you may look at this video and say, this is crazy. This doesn't make sense. Why am I even watching this? I get it. But sometimes we have to be reminded of what really is normal. Be reminded of how easy it is or how simple it can be to come to a solution to a simplistic problem or a problem that is within our reach. And we don't always see that because of politics, because of, again, personal, because of other life stressors. Sometimes it throws our normal thinking off, which means our common sense goes off with our normal thinking. And it has to be addressed, and it can be difficult because we're all different. We all feel differently about sometimes the same thing. One person may look at a job or the cost of living one way, whereas another person looks at it like it's not a big deal. So we have to learn how to be honest with ourselves when common sense is not in play. So how do you know when common sense is not in play? Well, when you make a decision and it doesn't help you, it could be a small decision or a big decision. But when we make decisions that don't help us, it's because we're really not thinking clearly. We don't focus on something, or there are other factors happening in our lives which doesn't allow us to tap into what we would normally do, or what normally would make that problem go away or minimize that particular problem. Now, we can have 101 examples, but the bottom line is when you are stressed, you're not your normal self. You're not thinking and feeling the way you normally would feel. So you have to be honest with how do you feel. You have to be honest with how do you sound. You have to be honest with how are you acting. You have to be honest with all these factors that play a part into the quote unquote common sense category. And I know that if you are, like I said before, stressed, you may be struggling to realize that you're not feeling yourself. And if you're not feeling yourself, now you're trying to figure out how to get back on track. But the problem is you're not realizing your stress in many of these scenarios, and it's difficult. So we have to understand also that in order to course correct or change things, we have to actively and intentionally make decisions. Dr. Phil says it all the time, or used to say it in his show when he was on before syndication, and now that it's into syndication, you might still hear it. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. And if you realize that something is happening that doesn't really feel right, or you don't feel your normal self, I think it's important that we realize we need to be quiet. Did you hear that? When there's nothingness there, it allows the opportunity to think about things in their real space, or in real time. Now, it's true, sometimes if you're not speaking, or if your space is quiet, your thoughts can run amok. That's true. But if you know you're actively having a problem, how am I going to pay this bill? Will the check come in? Will the check clear? I've got, oh wow, another bill or another scenario just happened. How do I bring this all together to make sense so that I satisfy all of my needs, maybe still have access to my wants, and it doesn't overwhelm me? Being quiet, well, being honest first and being quiet are two things that will help you get to the end result. Being honest, knowing you're not your normal self. Being quiet, allowing yourself to think through some options and solutions. And then actively and intentionally attacking or addressing the issue once you have discovered, wow, I'm not myself. Wow, I should and need to do something about the way that I feel, or this problem that I'm currently having. Once you have done that, now what is your plan? Can you go and address the person? Can you go and find the funding? Can you do whatever may be required to get things back on track, to course correct, to get you where you need to be and where you want to be, and where you can thrive like you normally do, or excel maybe beyond where you were before all of this happened. So understand that common sense is not always so common. You know, it should be, again, unless you have a mental condition or you have other mental health issues. People that are on the spectrum may do things that people that are not on the spectrum don't agree with and don't see in the same light. So again, consider those things. Consider the fact that if you don't feel yourself, be quiet. Allow yourself a chance to really assess what's happening within. And it may even be a good tip to ask someone, hey, do I seem like I normally am with you? Or do I seem off? Or what's the energy like? Because, you know, energy is transferable. It's just that a lot of us don't recognize it. We know that something is off, but we don't know it's our emotional state, our energy that does impact others. And it starts on the inside. Now, of course, this topic can be much deeper when you're really addressing specific issues. But as a starter, I'm hoping that this helps someone. And please feel free to give me your feedback on this topic. And if it's not for you, I highly recommend suggest it for someone else that may be able to benefit from it. So please share, like, and subscribe. Please, let's have a conversation. You can reach out to me at sircharlescareyinc.com, or you can reach out to me on any of the social media platforms that have a direct messenger, or DM as they say, so that we can take this conversation to the next level. And I may do another talk in more detail about common sense issues, how they work or how they don't work, or when you can recognize that there is an issue, or when you can recognize that there is not an issue. So with that being said, until the next time, radiate the brain and change the game.